September 6th, 1997. London is silent. A silence so heavy, it feels like the world has stopped turning. 2.5 billion people, nearly half the population of the planet at the time, are glued to their television screens. They are watching a gun carriage, draped in the royal standard, carrying a coffin. Inside lies the body of a woman who was not a queen, not a head of state, but who ruled the hearts of the world. Diana, Princess of Wales. Just 1 week earlier, she was the most photographed, most famous, most vibrant woman on earth. Now she is gone, killed in a twisted wreck of steel and glass in a tunnel in Paris. The official story? A tragic accident. A drunk driver, speeding, paparazzi. But for 25 years, a shadow has hung over that tunnel. Whispers of conspiracy, motive, betrayal. Was it really an accident, or was it the final act of a royal tragedy? To understand her death, we must first understand her life and the intricate, painful web of people who shaped her destiny. Diana Frances Spencer was born into aristocracy in 1961. Her father, Edward John Spencer, was a viscount, an aide to the king. Her family lived on the Sandringham estate, literally next door to the royal family. But behind the grand gates, there was sadness. Diana was born into a house that wanted a boy. Her parents were desperate for an heir to the Spencer title. Her childhood memories were haunted by guilt, the feeling of being a disappointment simply for being a girl. And then the war began. Her parents' marriage collapsed. Adultery, screaming matches, and finally, a bitter public divorce. Diana and her younger brother became pawns in a custody battle, a battle her mother lost thanks to the testimony of her own mother, Diana's grandmother, against her. It was a betrayal that scarred Diana deeply. She grew up feeling unloved, abandoned academically. She struggled, she failed her exams, she joked about never being the smartest in the room, but she had a gift, empathy, and she loved to dance. She dreamed of being a ballerina, a dream crushed by her height. She grew too tall. By 1978, she was living in London, working as a nanny, a kindergarten teacher, a shy, quiet, blushing teenager living a normal life until the day the prince noticed her. Charles Philip Arthur George, born in 1948, the heir. His life was mapped out before he drew his first breath. Educated in palaces and then strict boarding schools like Gordonstown, where he was bullied, lonely, and hardened. By the late 1970s, Charles was in his 30s. The pressure was mounting. The future king needed a queen, but not just any woman. She had to be an aristocrat, a Protestant, and crucially, she had to be a virgin. She had to be suitable. Charles had dated many women, but none fit the impossible mold. He had known the Spencer family for years. He had even dated Diana's older sister, Sarah. It was Sarah who introduced them. To Charles, Diana seemed perfect. Young, 19 years old, untouched by scandal. Naive, malleable. He needed a wife to secure the succession. She needed to be loved. On February 6th, 1981, he proposed. When asked by a reporter if they were in love, Diana replied instantly, "Of course," Charles famously added. Whatever in love means, the cracks were already there. You cannot tell the story of Diana without telling the story of Camilla Rosemary Shand. Born in 1947, confident, earthy, funny. She moved in the same upper-class circles. She loved horses, hunting, the country life, just like Charles. They met in 1971 at a polo match. The connection was instant, electric. They began a relationship. They were happy. But Camilla was not suitable. She had a past. She was not a virgin. The royal family, specifically Lord Mountbatten, Charles's mentor, intervened. Charles was sent away on naval duty, essentially to separate them. While he was gone, Camilla moved on. She married Andrew Parker Bowles, an army officer, in 1973. Charles was heartbroken, but they remained friends. Even after Charles married Diana, Camilla was always there, a shadow in the marriage. Charles later admitted that once his marriage to Diana had irretrievably broken down, he returned to Camilla. Diana knew. She always knew. She famously said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded."
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
July 29th, 1981, the wedding. 750 million people watched. It looked like a fairy tale, but inside the palace, it was a nightmare. Diana, overwhelmed by the pressure, developed bulimia. She was shrinking, fading away, while the world cheered. She gave birth to William, and then Harry, the heir and the spare. She had done her duty, but the distance between her and Charles grew into a chasm. He was jealous of her popularity. She was desperate for his attention. He went back to Camilla. She found comfort in other men. By the early 90s, the war was public. leaked tapes, tell-all books. And then, the interview. Diana sat down with the BBC and burned the house down. She admitted her own affairs. She exposed Charles. She questioned his fitness to be king. The Queen had seen enough. She ordered them to divorce. In 1996, it was finalised. Diana lost the title, Her Royal Highness, but she kept the title Princess of Wales. She was free. She reinvented herself. A humanitarian, a global icon, walking through minefields, touching AIDS patients. She was more powerful and more dangerous to the establishment than ever before. Summer 1997. Diana is 36. She is single. She is searching. She had just ended a deep 2-year relationship with a heart surgeon, Hasnat Khan, the man many say was the true love of her life. Rebounding, she accepted an invitation. Dodi Al-Fayed, the billionaire owner of Harrods, he invited her and her sons to his villa in the south of France. There, she met his son, Dodi Al-Fayed, a playboy, a film producer, wealthy, charming, and attentive. He offered her something she hadn't had in years: protection and fun. The British press went feral. Photos of them kissing on a yacht sold for millions. The mother of the future king dating a Muslim playboy. The rumors swirled. Was she pregnant? Were they getting engaged? The establishment was reportedly terrified. It was against this backdrop of frenzy and scandal that they arrived in Paris on August 30th, 1997. They planned to stay one night. They dined at the Ritz Hotel owned by Dodi's father. Outside, a swarm of paparazzi, a mob. Dodi hatched a plan, a decoy. 2 cars would leave from the front to distract the photographers. He and Diana would slip out the back in a hired Mercedes S280, driven by the acting head of security at the Ritz, Henri Paul, and accompanied by Diana's bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones. 12:20 a.m. They leave the back exit. But the paparazzi realize the trick. They give chase. Motorcycles, scooters, cars. The Mercedes speeds up, heading for Dodi's apartment. They enter the Pont de l'Alma Tunnel. Estimates say the car was traveling way over the speed limit. Whatever happened in those seconds, Henri Paul lost control. The car swerved, smashed into the 13th pillar, spun and hit the wall. Dodi Al-Fayed and Henri Paul died instantly. Trevor Rees-Jones, the bodyguard, yes, survived, but with catastrophic facial injuries. He was the only one wearing a seatbelt. Diana was still alive, conscious, murmuring, "My God, leave me alone," trapped in the wreckage. While the paparazzi, instead of helping, took photos. She was extracted, rushed to the hospital. Surgeons fought for hours to save her, but the internal bleeding, the torn pulmonary vein, was too much. At 4 a.m., she was pronounced dead. The official inquiry ruled it an accident. Gross negligence by a drunk driver, Henri Paul, compounded by the paparazzi chase. But the theories began immediately, and they have never gone away. Theory 1, the pregnancy. Was Diana pregnant with Dodi's child? Mohammed Al-Fayed claimed she was. He claimed the royal family could not accept a Muslim stepfather to the future king. The autopsy said no. But conspiracy theorists say the results were faked. Theory 2, the note. Years after her death, a letter was revealed, written by Diana to her butler, Paul Burrell. In it, she wrote, "I am sitting here at my desk today in October, longing for someone to hug me. This particular phase in my life is the most dangerous. Someone is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury to make the path clear for Charles to marry." She predicted her own death, or she was fed paranoia to manipulate her. Theory 3, the white Fiat. Paint analysis on the Mercedes proved it had scraped against a white Fiat Uno seconds before the crash. Witnesses saw a white Fiat exiting the tunnel erratically. The car was never officially found. Some say it was James Anderson, a paparazzi who later died in mysterious circumstances, a suicide, in a burned-out car. Theory 4, the flash. Witnesses in the tunnel reported seeing a bright, blinding flash of light right before the crash. Was it a camera or a military-grade strobe light used to blind the driver? Richard Tomlinson, an ex-MI6 agent, claimed the Secret Service had plans to assassinate a Serbian leader using exactly that method, a bright light in a tunnel. Theory 5, the driver, Henri Paul. Blood tests showed he was 3 times over the legal alcohol limit and had antidepressants in his system. Yet, CCTV from the Ritz shows him walking normally, tying his shoelaces, acting sober. Where did the carbon monoxide found in his blood come from? Was the sample swapped? Was he an informant for the intelligence services? Huge sums of money were found in his accounts. The investigations, French and British, spanned years. Millions of pounds, thousands of pages. They all concluded accident, a drunk driver, speed, no seatbelt, bad luck, but for millions. The story doesn't sit right. The convenience of it, the letter, the missing Fiat, the flash. Diana was a problem, a loose cannon, a threat to the monarchy, monarchy, and then she was gone. Charles eventually married Camilla in 2005. She is now Queen Consort. The path was indeed cleared. Was it a conspiracy, or was it the tragic, mundane end to a life lived in the eye of a storm? Perhaps we will never truly know. But one thing is certain: the people's princess did not just die. She was chased to her death by the very obsession that made her a legend. And in that tunnel under the streets of Paris, a secret, perhaps the biggest secret of all, died with her.